The storm outside the glass walls of the penthouse mirrored the storm inside his heart. Thunder roared through the night as raindrops raced down the massive windows overlooking the city. Adrian Cole, one of the youngest billionaires in the country, lay on his velvet couch pretending to be asleep. The lights were dim, the sound of rain was soft yet heavy, and every few seconds, lightning illuminated the face of the quiet girl tidying his living room. Her name was Mia. And tonight, he was testing her. Not for fun. Not for cruelty. But for something deeper, something he didn't yet understand himself. He had built an empire out of steel, concrete, and sleepless nights, yet the loneliness he carried was heavier than all of it. People saw him as a machine, a man who never smiled, never broke. But there was a crack in his armor. His father had always told him, "Trust no one who serves you, they serve because they must, not because they care." So when he hired Mia, a timid young woman from a struggling neighborhood, that lesson echoed in his mind. She was quiet, always respectful, and moved through the mansion like a ghost, cleaning, organizing, and never looking him in the eye. But something about her gentleness unsettled him. Something about the way she treated his home, as if it were sacred, made him want to believe she was different. So tonight, he decided to test her. He pretended to be asleep on the couch after a long day, his phone beside him, his wallet just a few inches away, open, with cash showing. He wanted to see what she'd do when she thought no one was watching. And what she did next, would shatter his walls forever. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of a good heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner, where every story reminds us that goodness still exists in this world. As the minutes passed, Mia moved carefully, dusting the bookshelves, straightening the couch cushions, and humming softly to herself, a tune that sounded like sadness disguised as hope. Adrian's eyes were closed, but his heart was listening. She paused near him, hesitated, and he heard the faint sound of a sigh, the kind of sigh that only someone burdened by life could release. She bent down slowly and pulled the blanket from the couch's edge, gently covering him. Her fingers brushed the fabric near his shoulder, careful not to touch him. Then something unexpected happened. She whispered, so softly that even in the silence, her voice trembled. "You look so tired, sir. I hope one day, you find someone who lets you rest for real." Adrian felt something stir inside him, something that hadn't moved in years. He almost opened his eyes, but he stayed still. She didn't touch his wallet, didn't glance at his phone. Instead, she gathered his coffee mug and quietly walked to the kitchen. Moments later, he smelled something strange, sweet, and comforting. She was making tea. But not for herself. Mia placed the warm cup on the table beside him, along with a small folded note that said, "For when you wake up. Chamomile, it helps with stress." She couldn't have known he'd see it that night, yet she did it anyway. That simple gesture, that quiet act of care for someone who'd never shown her any kindness, broke something open in him. What Adrian didn't know was that Mia was fighting her own battles. Every night after cleaning his mansion, she took 2 buses home to a tiny apartment where her sick mother lay on an old couch, too weak to walk. Mia worked 3 jobs, one as a maid, one in a bakery, and another cleaning offices at dawn, just to afford her mother's medicine. She never complained. She never told anyone. She simply smiled when asked how she was and said, "I'm okay." But she wasn't. She was tired, hungry, and lonely, yet she still found room in her heart to care for others. The next morning, Adrian pretended not to remember anything. He thanked her stiffly for cleaning, barely looking at her as usual. But something had changed in him. For the first time, he wondered how someone could be so selfless in a world that had never been kind to them. Over the next few days, he watched her quietly, not as an employer, but as a human being. He noticed how she saved the uneaten food from his table and hid it in her bag before leaving, not out of greed, but desperation. He noticed how she smiled at the elderly doorman every morning, leaving him a small piece of bread even though she barely had enough for herself. And one evening, when she thought no one was watching, he saw her wipe tears from her eyes while scrubbing the marble floor, tears she quickly hid when she heard footsteps. Adrian's chest tightened. He realized how blind he'd been, living in luxury while someone under his roof carried the weight of survival quietly, gracefully. So, one night, he decided to do something. He waited until she finished her chores, then told her she could leave early. But after she walked out, he followed, quietly, keeping his distance as she took the late-night bus. When he saw where she lived, the sight stunned him. The building was old, cracked, and damp from the rain. She climbed 4 flights of stairs to reach her small apartment. Through the half-open door, he saw her kneel beside an elderly woman, holding her hand and smiling as if she'd just come home to heaven. That smile, pure and bright despite everything, broke him completely. The next morning, Adrian called his lawyer. He arranged for an anonymous medical fund to cover her mother's treatment. He increased Mia's salary without explanation and gave her an advance under the pretense of work performance. But Mia, being who she was, came to his office trembling, saying she thought there'd been a mistake. He looked into her wide, uncertain eyes and said quietly, "There's no mistake. You deserve more than what this world has given you." She didn't know how to respond. She just lowered her head and whispered, "Thank you, sir." Days turned into weeks. Mia's mother began to recover, slowly but steadily. Adrian found himself smiling more often, sleeping better, and even laughing at times, something he hadn't done since his father's passing. He didn't realize it then, but Mia was teaching him something that no business deal, no luxury, no amount of money ever could: kindness isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest form. One evening, months later, Mia came to him with a small box in her hands. Inside was a cup, the same kind she used that night when she made him tea. She smiled shyly and said, "I wanted to give this to you. For all you've done." Adrian felt his throat tighten. He told her he didn't deserve thanks, not after the way he'd judged her. But Mia shook her head and said, "You gave me a reason to keep believing that good people still exist. That's more than enough." That night, Adrian sat by the window of his penthouse, the city lights glowing below. He thought about his father's words again, "Trust no one who serves you." But now, he smiled. Because the one person who had served him had also saved him. He looked at the cup she'd given him, still warm from the tea she'd made before leaving. And for the first time in years, tears filled his eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude. He had tested her heart, but in the end, it was his that had been tested. And she had healed it without even knowing. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness can change even the hardest souls, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us spread more stories that remind the world of what truly matters: compassion, faith, and love. And before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us what you would have done if you were in Mia's place. Would you still choose kindness when no one's watching?